Hi, welcome to this mini webinar on pizza and blood glucose control. Not quite easy as pie. My name is Gary Scheiner, and I will be your presenter for this session. I'm a certified diabetes care and education specialist. I've written several books, including Think Like a Pancreas. I was lucky to be named the Diabetes Educator of the Year back in 2014. I do quite a bit of lecturing and presenting on diabetes. I've lived with type 1 diabetes for more than 35 years, and personally, I'm a bit preferential to hand-tossed New York style pizza. So just as a quick overview of what we'll cover in this mini webinar, we'll talk about why pizza is so challenging for those of us with diabetes. We'll discuss the counting of the carbs in pizza, proper timing of the insulin for covering pizza, and also how to deal with those lingering effects we see from the fat that is included in most pizza. So overall, what is it about pizza that's so challenging? Well, we've got a few things. One is it is really challenging counting the carbohydrate in pizza. There is the potential for delayed absorption. So the carbohydrates in pizza may not all kick in all at one time. And there's also potential for this prolonged delayed glucose rise many hours after we've enjoyed our favorite pie. I find one approach to counting the carbs in pizza to be really useful is just the simple hand approach. The size of an adult's hand can be correlated with how much carbohydrate that pizza contains. With a very thin crust pizza, we're looking at about 20 grams per hand-sized piece. For the traditional hand-tossed pies, it's about 30 grams per hand. And for thick, very thick crust or pan style or Sicilian pizza, we're looking at close to 45 grams. So I happened to get my lunch a little early today, and here's a slice. So how many hands have we got here? Well, we definitely have more than one. This is probably close to 2 hand-sized pieces. So we're looking at about 60 grams for this hand-tossed slice of pizza. And since I'm a hungry guy, I also got a piece of Sicilian pizza, nice thick crust. And again, we're looking at maybe a little more than a hand. So we're probably up around 50, 55, maybe 60 grams for this particular slice of Sicilian pizza. That looks good, doesn't it? So here's a quick quiz for you. Here's a slice of hand-tossed pizza with an adult's hand right next to it. How much carbohydrate do you think this slice contains? Remember, it's about 30 grams for a hand-sized piece for hand-tossed pizza. In this particular case, I think the hand doesn't quite cover the full slice. That slice is maybe a hand and a third. So we might go with around 40 grams for that particular slice. Another technique we can use for counting the carbs in pizza is called a carb factor. Essentially, this involves weighing a portion of food and multiplying the weight by the carb factor for that particular food item to get your total carb count. And the reason we can do this is that the carb factor simply represents the percentage of the food's weight that's made up of carbohydrate. Everything else is other stuff, fat, protein, vitamins, minerals, that kind of stuff. So there are carb factors for literally hundreds of different foods. And you'll see things like bagels, 0.51, about half of a bagel's weight is carbohydrate. You'll see that a potato salad, it's only 0.09 because there's a lot of water mass in potato salad. But pizza is right up here. About 1/3 of a pizza's weight is carbohydrate. Now, yeah, that can vary a little bit depending on the toppings, but for traditional cheese pizza, maybe with a little pepperoni on it, about 1/3 of the weight is going to be made of carbohydrate. So if these ladies are enjoying a slice of pizza that weighs 150 grams, I'm sure they weighed their slice before they ate it. How much carbohydrate is that slice going to have? Remember, it's pretty close to 1/3 of the weight is carb. So we're looking at about 48 grams of carb for that slice. All right, so you counted the carbs. You got a good estimation of how much is in that slice. What comes next? The next thing is we have to time the insulin correctly. It's important to note that with foods that contain a great deal of fat, the digestion of that food can be slowed down quite a bit. We're not going to see an immediate spike in the blood sugar with high fat foods. And likewise, the bigger the meal, the longer it's going to take to digest. So one slice of pizza will tend to digest a lot faster than if you eat half the pie. The challenge is that if we take a full dose of rapid acting insulin at the time we have a meal, the insulin, and that's the yellow line, is going to peak before the food has a chance to digest. And then it runs out when the food is all starting to kick in later. And that produces a pattern of a drop in the blood sugar right after the meal and then a rise hours later. So what can we do about that? If you're taking insulin by injection, you can certainly delay your shot. Taking the insulin after eating, even 30, maybe 60 minutes after eating could work. You have the option of splitting your dose into two parts. Give half with the meal, give the other half an hour or two later. A third option is to kind of go old school, go to use regular insulin. And this was the mealtime insulin that we had before the rapid insulins were available. Regular insulin does a pretty decent job of offsetting the rise from a slower digesting meal. For those who use insulin pumps, we have some better options. We can use a square or extended bolus. With that type of bolus, the entire thing can be spread out over time. I find it works a little better to give some of the bolus up front, maybe 25% or 33%, and then spread the remainder out over a couple of hours. For those who use a hybrid closed loop system, an extended bolus may not be an option. So in a case like that, you may just have to split the bolus. Again, give half of it with the meal and cover the other half an hour or two later. And if you're using a system that allows you to enter the absorption time for the food, certainly prolong that absorption time. Put in 5-6 hours, because it probably will take that long for all the carbs to fully digest. Okay, so you've counted your carbs and you've got your bolus timing down pat. Can we relax? Not exactly. Now we've got to deal with the fat content of the pizza. So it might interest you to know how dietary fat affects blood sugar levels, because the fat itself doesn't magically convert into glucose, but there is a series of events that take place. And it starts, of course, with eating the pizza, and that's a little baby Homer Simpson there. When we have high fat foods like pizza, it causes the triglyceride levels in the bloodstream to rise up. When the triglyceride levels go up, the liver starts to become insulin resistant, and that causes the liver to dump out extra glucose for a while. So we need something to deal with that extra glucose that the liver is producing. If we just extend the bolus for the pizza, we're not getting more insulin. We're just slowing down the appearance of the insulin. So in a case like this, we have to get a little creative. If you're taking insulin by injection, another old school option is to take a little bit of NPH insulin with that meal, because NPH insulin has most of its effects 4 to 8 hours after it's taken. It can do a decent job of offsetting the effects that the dietary fat can have. With a pump, it's fairly easy to turn on a temporary basal increase. Many people raise their basal anywhere from 40 to 60% for about 6 to 8 hours following a meal like pizza. If you're using a hybrid closed loop that doesn't allow a temp basal, you might consider shutting off the closed loop feature and running in manual mode so you can set a temp basal. With some pumps, you can change your basal profile and run off of a profile that has higher settings for the next 6 to 8 hours. And if it's a system that allows you to program a temporary override, take advantage of that and go ahead and set it. So the good news is that you can still enjoy pizza and control your glucose levels. If you estimate your carbs well, time the bolus properly, and see to it that you're getting some extra basal insulin after the fact. So I want to thank you all for watching and hopefully paying attention. Now, the Type 1 University courses get into quite a bit more depth and detail about their various topics than we did today. Those courses typically run anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes, so I hope you'll check those out. And for those who are looking for even more detailed help, one-on-one guidance, please get in touch with our practice. Integrated Diabetes Services offers consulting all over the world through phone, video, etc. And we can work with you on pretty much any aspect of your diabetes care. So now, if you'll excuse me, I've got some lunch to eat.